Hey, all. Wanted to take a break from theory videos today and just do a brief video on an idea I have for trying to solve the lineup train issue in cash games. That seems to be a popular um, issue going around the DFS world right now. And I think I have an idea that can help. And I wanted to bring up this old tweet that Alex put out there. I'll just read it. Should sites add a captain MVP slot to these three sports? Had an interesting conversation with Brian Hooper where he suggested it would add a lot more combos to sports with smaller pools. So we went and had drinks a while ago, and I told him this idea. And, obviously he seemed to like it. And the idea is if you just, I mean, it's just if you add a captain slot and they have different salaries than the regular player pool, you're basically doubling the field, doubling the amount of players you can use. Even though they're the same name, it doesn't matter if you change the salary, right? If you had LeBron James at 10,000 and then for some reason you had a LeBron James at 10,500, you would never pick that 10,500 one, but it would just basically be a completely different player. So in small fields, there's a lot of ties, and people don't like that. And I think it adds, it's a benefit to skill players when there's more players to choose from. So yeah, that's the reason I suggested it. And he put this poll up, and I responded. And for small field PGA events, because I love the PGA and I play it every week, and then I responded today or yesterday. Looks like DraftKings was listening because this week they changed the format in their PGA to have a captain spot for this President's Cup, which is a small field event. So that's great. So with this being evidence that DraftKings listens to everything I say, here's one more. Here's one more idea. So Alex also he posted a lot. Hopefully I can find it. Yeah, his fireside chat. He needs to put like a little iPad with a fake fire in the background when he does these. He had a suggestion for trying to fix the lineup train in cash games that everyone complains about. And I think his suggestion was something like if you play odd number events like a 3-man, then they won't have such a big advantage. My idea is something I posted on Roto Grinders 2 years ago. There it is, a long time ago. The idea is, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but if you want to, you can go find it. It's under my profile. The idea basically is to steal the Zoom poker idea from the poker world, where players are just thrown into a pool and then randomly assigned seats, and they keep constantly changing. In poker, it wouldn't happen like that in DFS, but the idea is the same, where, like, let's say it's a $5 level head-to-heads. Instead of selecting your opponent and then playing against them, or posting games and then having good players scoop you, everyone just enters into the same player pool, and then you're randomly assigned an opponent at lock. So in the way to get around trains would be, first of all, you're randomly selected. So a guy who is running a train who gets randomly selected against another guy who runs a train, they would just get their money back. So essentially, they wouldn't play. It also solves like issues with people who think Chipotle Attic and Papa Gates cheat. I don't think they do, but there's a lot of people out there who do. Well, guess what? If they enter this head-to-head pool, they might play each other, and in fact, they definitely probably eventually would. Right? So, like, what point would cheating be when they play against each other? And then the other option here is here's how I would do it, but you could do it a bunch of different ways. So let's say you can do 150 entries and do like a $5 head-to-head pool. The first round of matchups would be for everyone with one entry or more, and so the second round of matches would be with people with 2 entries or more. So eventually you're gonna weed out all the recreational players and players who only play 3 or 4, they'd be in the biggest possible pool they could be to play against people of equal skill or lesser skill, or dodge lineup drains. And then once you get down to like the 100, 150 entries range, it would just be the pros playing against each other. Whoever max enters 150 lineups, there'd probably only be like 5. Normally there's like 5 guys who enter everything. And they would just be playing against each other, right? They couldn't scoop events, couldn't scoop head-to-heads. They couldn't just wait there and pick. And also another thing is the head-to-heads are scary, right, for recreational players, or not even, average players. Like they go in there, they see all these players with experience badge maxed out and all the big names on leaderboards, and they're like, why would I post a head-to-head when I'm just going to lose? These guys are just going to instantly scoop my game, right? If you were randomly thrown into a pool, a lot more people would do it, right? And head-to-heads are lower rake than a lot of those double ups, right? So it would save money. It also would lower the variance for the recreational player, because if you guys, for people who play a lot of double ups, you basically either win that day or lose. There's days where sometimes you'll win a few and lose a few, but basically in double ups, you're gonna either, if you put down $500, you're gonna either get back 1,000 minus rake, or you're gonna lose the full 500. In head-to-heads, you actually do have some variance there, where like you'll win 35% of your games that night, or 80%. You're less likely to win 100%, but for someone who doesn't play that often, I think it'll keep them more interested in playing longer, paying less rake, being less intimidated. And I've shared this with the contacts at the bigger sites, and like CEOs of the smaller sites. I'm like, hey, this is only one man's opinion, but this is where I would like to see the cash games go, because the cash games are really kind of dead or dying. And the same thing goes with the double ups and 50-50s, right? Like the 10-mans, you could make those random pools too if people really love entering, double ups instead of head-to-heads. Randomize those, put them all into a random pool. I think that covers the idea. So it wouldn't eliminate lineup trains. I'm not sure you ever really can. And I kind of don't want them to go away, because these guys, their lineup trains, a lot of them, they're taking them from subscription sites and just optimizing from Fantasy Cruncher the top lineup and then throwing it in there. Well, those sites go down sometimes. If you're not making your own projections, which is what I suggest everyone does, you don't have any control. So if Fantasy Labs goes down, or they don't get their minutes updated before lock-in time, you're out of luck. You're just guessing because you haven't put in the time to build your own projections. And I think that should pretty much sum it up. And just I'm going to try to label this one. I'll probably label this one DFS, but not every video I do is going to be on theory, so I hope that doesn't upset anybody. But if you just read the label, and if you don't like the topic, skip it. All right, have a good one.